Okay. Now, the third question here. The time taken to produce each of the first 4 batches. Okay. Here you're not given the cumulative average time. Here you're actually given the incremental time for each unit. Like for first, second, third, and fourth unit. What you actually calculate from the fourth column of the table, that thing that actually is given to you. Okay. And now you need to calculate what was the rate of learning closest to, and be sure to follow the decimal rules as well. Here you need to calculate the rate of learning closest to 1 decimal places. Okay, the answer should be in 1 decimal place. Okay, so how you're going to solve this? Yeah, the same. Let me make the format again. The same cumulative batches. Okay, and here I'm going to follow the cumulative thing, right? Though you're given only the time taken for the first 4 batches, and then here it's going to be cumulative average time per unit. Okay, and then total time, and then okay, actually here we need to calculate the learning rate. Okay. First, so it's going to be 2, and then 2 more. It's going to be 4, right? So here, what is the cumulative average time for the first unit? That's 100 minutes, right? That's 100 minutes. Okay. Okay. Now for 2, cumulative average time for 2 units. Okay. How? I told you basically average, how you calculate the average. Average. So average is going to be time taken for the first unit is 100 and the first second unit is 70. Okay. And just divide it by 2. You're going to get the cumulative average time. What's a big deal in it? No? Okay. So just do that. It's going to be 170 divided by 2. So it's 85, right? And if I want to calculate the learning rate here, so it's going to be just divide this average with the, divide this with the previous one, you're going to get the average learning rate. So 85 divided by 100, that's 85%. Here it is 80.85, right? 0.85, which is 85%. And now, how I'm going to get the cumulative average time? Can you get, okay. Now, how are you going to get the cumulative average time per unit again for 4 batches? Yeah, same we did in case of 2 batches. Now it will be in case of 4 batches now. So it's going to be 100 plus 70 plus you already know the time taken for the third and fourth batch as well. 59 and 55 minutes. Just add up all. 59 plus plus 55, and now this time it will be divided by 4, since these are 4 batches. Cumulative average time and 4 are produced together, right? 4 batches. So it's going to be 170 plus 59 plus 55, 284 divided by 4, 71. This time it's 71. This is cumulative average time per unit. And how you get the learning rate? Again, divide this with the previous one. 71 divided by 85. So every time you're going to get the learning rate. 71 divided by 85. This time it's usually it's the same, but this time it's a little bit different. That's why it asked you the closest learning rate. This is 0.83529. Okay, and then if I take the average of both these numbers, I am actually gonna get the learning rate closest to one figure. 0.85 plus 0.83529. divided by 2, and I need to take answer to one decimal place, very important it is, plus 0.85 divided by 2. So the closest is this, and then multiply it with 100 as well, since you want answer in percentages. So the answer is 84.26, to one decimal place. So it's going to be, this is going to be the rounding figure, and this is greater than 1, so this will be increased by 1. So it's going to be 84.3%. Got it? See, this is the rounding figure. See the number next to it. If it is either 5 or greater than 5, this number would be increased. Previous number would be increased by 1. So it is 84.3%. That's your answer. All right. Okay. Let's do the big cheese chair now. Learning curve question. Big cheese chair manufactures and sells executive leather chairs. Okay. What you need to calculate here, first go through the requirement. It's an 8-mark requirement. Calculate the average cost for the first 128 chairs. It didn't ask you to calculate the cost for 128th chair. Okay, then if you were supposed to do that, what you were required to calculate the cumulative average time for 128 and 127 chairs, and then total time for 128 and 127 chairs, and then simply deduct from total time of 128 the time for 127. That's how you're going to get the time taken for 128th chair. But here you only need to calculate the average cost for the first 128 chairs. Means you just need to calculate the average time for 128 chairs, right? And and per unit, average cost per unit, and identify any cost gap that may be present at that stage. So actually this question is a mix of target costing and learning curve question. Okay, and then in part B, it's a theoretical one, assuming that there is a cost gap, so just 4 ways it could be closed. Okay, and then in part C, here, the production manager denies any claim that a cost gap exists and has stated the cost of 128th chair will be low enough to yield the required margin. So here you need to calculate the cost of 128th chair. Here you need to apply the same methodology I told you here. Okay, here they are asking you to calculate the cost of 128th chair. So you'll be doing this, okay, per unit for 120 and 127, and then total time for 128 and 127, and then deduct, and that's how you're going to get the time taken for 128th chair. Okay, because here they said that learning improvement will stop once 128 chairs have been made, and the time for the 128th chair will be the time for all subsequent chair, and labor rate per hour is also given. The learning formula is 95% learning index, learning rate, and they've already calculated learning index that you actually calculate by log of 0.95 divided by log of 2, but here it's already calculated. But when you'll be doing this question in Excel, better to instead of writing, you can make a mistake, better to calculate it, and then you can reference do the cell reference as well and do your calculation, and state whether the target cost is being achieved on 28 chair or not. So this is a mix of question. Let's go through the requirement of the question. They're considering a new design of massage chair to launch into the competitive market in which they operate. Okay, it's a new product. They have carried out an investigation into the market, and using a target costing system have targeted a competitive selling price of 120 for the chair. Okay, that's the market price. Okay, from that market price, if you deduct your profit markup margin or any return, you're going to get your target cost. Okay, so in order to find the cost gap, which is basically the difference between estimated cost and your target cost, first of all you need to calculate your target cost, and here it's margin of 20%. Okay, now BCC wants a margin on selling price of 122%, and market price here is 120. So what would be the margin? First, working here, I need to calculate since market price here is 120. Okay, the market price is 120. Now profit is 120. Market price is 120. Now profit margin. Okay, margin, selling price is 100%. Profit is percentage of selling price. So 120 divided by 100 into 20, I'm going to get my profit, or 24, right? And what is your target cost then? Market price minus profit margin, I'm going to get my target cost of 96. Okay, this is working one. In order to calculate the cost gap, okay, and remember we are calculating the average cost for first 128 share, right? Okay, and then there's few costs which are given here. In order to, we need to calculate the estimated cost, right? Frame and massage mechanism will be bought in for 51 per chair. Okay, for one chair, average cost for one when 128 batches are made together, but it's actually a cost for one chair that we actually need to calculate in order to do the cost gap. Since target cost is for target one chair, the target cost is 96. And then now we need to see whether there is any cost gap or not. So we need to calculate the estimated cost first. Frame and massage mechanism is for 51, right? And leather cost. Now the leather cost working here. It is leather cost 10 per meter and 2 meters are needed for a complete chair. Although 20% of leather is wasted. Okay. So one finish unit takes about 2 meters, but that's actually 80% goes to a complete chair. But we input 100%. So how many meters we're going to input? We need to gross this 2 meter up and then multiply it with that rate in order to get the estimated leather cost for one chair. So first I'm going to do the working of this grossing up here. Okay, 2 is basically 80%, right? Okay, and I want to get what was entered. It was 2.5 meters actually. Okay, so and rate is 2.5. Shift and static for multiplication, and rate was it 10? Let me go back and check what was the rate. Yes, it was
Yes, ma'am.
10 per meter. Yeah, it was 10 per meter. See, so 2.5 meters into 10. So here's the cost. Okay, here's the cost. Okay, now next, what's no other cost except the labor. Leather cost was this was done, and now the upholstery and assembly process will be subject to a learning effect as the labor get used to the new design. Since a new design, new product, okay, and in target costing as well, how to calculate, how to that you could discuss in section B here, that assuming that there was a cost gap. So just 4 ways how the cost gap could be covered here. Initially at the design stage we could change the design and deduct the unnecessary features in the chair, and we can ultimately get to reduce our cost. Okay, and that's how cost gap could be covered in the design stage as well by using the value analysis. Since we did the market analysis, that's the starting point of target costing. So getting the material requirements and then producing your product could help you to save cost as well by, you know, not in spending on unnecessary features which are of no value to the customer. Okay, so now the labor cost we were talking about. Okay, BCC estimated the first year which take about 2 hours to prepare, but this will be subject to a learning rate of 95%. The learning improvement will stop once 128 chairs have been made, and the time taken for 128 chair will be the time taken for the subsequent chairs, and the cost of labor is 15 per hour. So just I need to calculate the cumulative average time for 128 chairs, and that'll be it by using the formula approach. Y equals ax raised to the power b, where you know a is the time taken for the first chair, and time taken for the first chair is basically 2 hours. You see that? 2 hours. And learning rate is 95%. Okay, that's 2 hours. Okay, and here I am going to calculate the learning index. Okay, log of learning rate is, what is the learning rate? Learning rate is 95%. 0.95, though it was already there, but better to calculate it, divided by log bracket 2. Okay, always give brackets. Okay, otherwise your answer will be wrong. See, learning index, I got it same as like it is that. Okay. Now by using the formula, I can calculate the time for 128 and then multiply it with the rate, which is 15 per hour. I'm actually gonna be able to calculate my labor cost, and then I'll be able to calculate the estimated cost and then see whether there is any cost gap or not. So see how I'm going to apply the formula here. A is this into 128, okay, raised to the power this, okay. I could fix two things as well, okay, that will be needing in section C. Okay, that's about spreadsheet magic. Okay, I'm just going to show you as we're going to do that. Here I could have done it like this, but I could have fixed it how to make your cell reference absolute, because every time this A and B is not changing, right? Okay, every time this A and B is not changing, and if you were required to do a big calculation at times from 1 to 16 batches, even 32, so better to fix these two. How you fix it? Basically, by using F4, you could fix it the other way, but in your whatever is the customized Excel window available in your exam, there that keyboard shortcut doesn't work. So manually, you need to enter the dollar sign before the alphabet and also before the row number. That's how you get to fix the formulas. Okay, and again, this is also fixing because every time this is not changing. Just what is I am keeping relative is basically the number of batches. The number of batches are changing, but this A and B is fixed. This is not changing, so I could fix it by making it absolute. Just insert the dollar sign before the alphabet as well as before the number. So this is the cumulative time for 128 batches. And now I need to calculate the cost. Okay, so that's the time, right? And into 15, I got the labor cost. And now see, simple sum it up. Okay, now the estimated cost is this. Now tell me, the target cost is already below the estimated cost. So do you think there's any cost gap here? Calculate average cost for the first 128 chairs made. I already did that. And identify any cost gap that may be present at that stage. Is there any cost gap here? Tell me. Are you guys with me? Is there any cost gap? Cost gap is when your estimated cost is greater than your target cost. Here your target cost is already less than your estimated cost. There's no cost gap here. Cost gap is 0. What's the cost gap? Cost gap is 0. Are you guys with me? So here I got the estimated cost, and the target cost was already less than the estimated cost. So the cost gap was 0. Got it?
Ma'am, here the estimated cost.
And now moving on to part number C, the production manager denies any claim that a cost gap exists and has stated that the cost of 128 share will be low enough to yield the required margin. Okay, so we see here is that the estimated cost was higher than the target cost, and then there is the cost gap that we need to reduce, and that we have already discussed that how to reduce this cost gap by redesigning chair, by reducing the wastage, by negotiating better with the frame supplier, and by supervision and all that. But our production manager denies that any claim that a cost gap exists, because actually here we calculated the target cost on based not when the learning actually stopped. That should be the time taken for 128th chair. Here we didn't calculate by using the estimated cost by using that. So now what you need to do, calculate the cost of 128th chair made, okay, and state now, and then recalculate the estimated cost based upon 128th chair, and then state whether the target cost is being achieved on the 128th chair. Then next you need to tell whether the production manager his claim is right or wrong, whether there exists any cost gap or not. Yes. Yes, Hussein?
No, ma'am. Carry on.
Okay. So calculate the cost of 128th chair. I told you how to calculate. Yeah, the same table over there. So here I'm going to calculate the cumulative average time per unit. C equals y equals ax b it is. Okay, time taken for the first unit is this. I'm actually going to fix it up by applying the dollar sign here. Into, I'm going to keep this thing relative, raised to the power and then I'm going to make this relative as well, raised to the power, make this absolute as well. See, and now this is cumulative average time per unit. And now I need to calculate the total time. This into this. I got the total time. See, what I can do, simply control C and control V. You were able to calculate the time taken for 127 unit as well. Okay, control C, whole column down, you actually got, see, that's the spreadsheet magic I was talking about. You only applied the formula once. This didn't help you. There were only 2 rows, but there were a lot of rows. You just applied the formula once, okay, by making the cell absolute like this, and then just copy paste it down. See, just copy paste it down like this, and you actually got the time taken for the next row. And now the time taken for 128 chair is total time of this minus total time for 127, and this is the time taken for the 128 chair when actually the learning stopped. So the frame mechanism, so next things are not changing. I can actually reference it like this. Okay, that's not changing. Leather cost is also the same. The only thing which is changing is going to be the labor cost here. And here, what is the labor time is this 1.29. There you remember what was the time? Was it higher or was it lower when 128 chair was made? It was actually higher. See, it was actually higher. And now there may not be any cost gap. Into 15, and now the estimated cost is 95.40. Now tell me, is there any cost gap? Estimated cost is 95.4054 and the target cost is 96. Yes, there is no cost gap. And what you're going to write next, that yes, he's right in his claim. We actually calculated our cost to be this, and yes, by using the formula that we already did, and yes, the production manager is correct in his assertion that the required return is now being achieved, and we actually are able to achieve our cost, target cost, which is below than our estimated cost. Okay, and there's no cost. Yeah. Okay, are we good now? Any questions you want to
Yeah,
ask? Then I have to end the class.
No, ma'am.
good, ma'am.
Okay. Any questions? So today we pretty much summed up everything in learning curve, how it could be assessed, okay? But there will be more questions related to learning curve, and we'll be doing more budgeting questions, more maybe if you're going to practice now, start practicing advanced costing questions with learning curve, okay? And then we actually did how to perform it on Excel. We actually did how to perform it on how the question would be assessed in section A and section B. So it pretty much covers everything. I hope you find this revision session helpful. Okay. Okay, that's it from today's class. Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
And I'll
Bye.
inform you about the next session, okay? That'll be on rolling budget, static code. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.